Thank you for coming to this episode of Empowered Entrepreneur. My guest today is Lisa Levy. Lisa is a three-time #1 best-selling author. In her book, Future Proofing Cubed, she shares her insights on productivity, profitability, and process refinement in business. Lisa's goal is to prepare her clients with the skills, capabilities, and self-reliance they need to thrive in the future without L Cubed's guidance. With this notion, she has broken the typical consulting model. Welcome, Lisa.
Vanessa, thank you so much for inviting me to the conversation.
I'm so glad to have you. Why don't you let us know a little bit more about yourself?
Absolutely. So I like to kind of consider myself an accidental entrepreneur. It really wasn't my plan. I went to school, I earned a degree in electronic media management, which is video production and video management. And when I graduated, I looked around and realized that I would earn more money working at McDonald's than going into journalism and video production. And I was a little, disheartened by that. And I had to, I guess it would be my first pivot, although I really don't like the word pivot because it's reactionary, but it fits in this moment because I didn't know what I was going to do. I ended up finding my way into the discipline of project management, which in the IT field in that time period was absolutely starting to boom. And the skills and the capabilities were exactly the same as video production. It started out about understanding and planning work, doing that work, and then wrapping it up and moving on to the next thing. So from video production, it was pre-production, production, post-production, same idea. Only we weren't playing with images, we were playing with technology. And that started my career and led me into corporate America. And I started to learn and become a better project manager. And I still was watching projects around me fail. And I was really frustrated by that because I'm an obsessive compulsive personality. And so when I started learning project management, I became good at it. I got certified in how to do it. I was an expert and things still weren't working. And so I started looking around the projects and understanding that it wasn't the technology that was failing. It was business processes that were not well designed to use technology created these failures, which pissed off all of the end users because their work now just got exponentially harder when everybody had been telling them it was going to get so much easier. And through all of this, I kept, looking at it. And so we'd start to get processes better. And then the implementations were a little bit better, but people were still unhappy. And looked further back in the, rolling it back earlier and earlier to the people doing the work and learning that it was really important to ensure that we had the right people who were skilled and capable using processes that were well-defined, effective, and efficient, and then enabling with technology. And that is the formula for success. And once I understood that, I decided I wanted to leave corporate because I was watching all of these C-level executives around me, people whom I reported to, bring in consulting teams that were telling them how to do things. And so there were 10 consulting teams who were not working together and not doing anything to help that business grow and thrive, but they were lining their pockets. And I was like, this sucks. I can do this better. And in 2009, with what I like to call a grown-up temper tantrum, I left corporate America and founded L Cubed Consulting so that I could help businesses get things done easier with less strife, and most importantly, without building a dependence on me and my team, because they need to be self-reliant to grow and scale their business, or I could consider that a personal failure. So totally different than what you would hear from almost any other consulting organization, because they want to partner with you and embed their teams in there and build your success together, which isn't about the client's success at all. It's about their profit margin. And I just hate that.
I resonate so much with that. Efficiency and effectiveness are two of my favorite words, but also I remember working for a government agency where they hired somebody, a consultant, to come up with a file system, a digital file system. It's like, really? Like, you couldn't ask me? So
And
yeah,
that consultant made tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars for something that you could have done in a fraction of the time.
yep, yep. And that was eye-opening for me because I was going to school at the time to get my bachelor's and master's degree in business management, where I actually was able to participate in a international consultancy project and a domestic consultancy project. And so I learned a lot. And I always had the idea of like, I want to put myself out of a job. I know that's not what the goal is. Like, we always want to have a stability. But when you make things so efficient and effective where you're not needed, I love that feeling.
So that feeling, right, is, again, right, for me, that is a personal definition of success. But that doesn't mean that a relationship with a client ends. There are other problems, there are other places, and there are times when they will want to reach out again. And that's awesome, right? That is building trusted advisor relationships. That's partnering for growth together. But it's on their terms, on their needs, and you add value, and we're done. Always willing, right, and hopeful for repeat business, right? We want that relationship to grow and exist over time, but for the right reasons, not simply because a consultancy has seeded in so many employees, so many resources that there's a dependence on them. And government agencies I've done work in that space, right? And they do that because they don't have the budgetary dollars for full-time employees. They offset it with those contractors. But when that budget line runs out, they're in a world of hurt because they don't have anybody inside who actually did that same work. And it's catastrophic. And that breaks my heart.
Yeah. Yeah. And that goes into our topic for today, facing uncertainty and navigating change. Let's open it up.
Absolutely. So, well, I'll just own it. Let's start with the pandemic.
Yes.
Gave us all a harsh reality check about what is uncertainty and what is right around the corner. And uncertainty is a reality. It's always been a reality. We pretend and we plan and we create strategic plans and we create 5-year plans and roadmaps and all of these things in our businesses that will never actually work out the way we want them to. And that's just the nature of the world and life, right? The best laid plans fall apart the first time something goes wrong. There's analogies about, the best laid plans, course of action in a military action falls apart the first time a bullet is shot, right? Everything plans are designed to not work. We don't like to talk about that, but it's the reality. And the foundation of a project management career is, if it were easy, it wouldn't have been a career path and everybody would be doing it. And so accepting and embracing uncertainty is, from a leadership and entrepreneurial perspective, something that we have to accept, because that is the nature of our reality forever. We don't know what's going to happen next. And our ability to thrive in a little bit of discomfort is imperative because we don't know what's next. And so facing uncertainty and embracing change kind of go together, because uncertainty leads to change, and change is hard. Human beings do not like change. We like patterns. We like repetition, with the exception of about 5% of the population who thrive in chaos and change. But it's really only 5% of the population. Everybody else is somewhere in the middle of, okay, I have to deal with it, but I don't like it. And then there's that 5% at the other end, right? Those heavy resistors that, I am not changing come hell or high water. I'm done. I do it this way, and I will always do it this way. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So you have this spectrum, but that's 10% on the ends, right? That's 90% of everybody else is in that middle somewhere navigating change. So it's important to make that part of a corporate culture. And a corporate culture is a company of 2 or 3 people, right? If we're starting our business and we are going to grow and scale, we are going to go down a path, and we are going to turn left, and we're going to turn right, and we're going to turn right, and we're going to turn left. And we are not going to end up where we thought. 14 years ago, when I created and went out on my own in L Cubed Consulting, I was building a project management consulting practice. 14 years later, it is an element of what we do. It is part of our framework that supports project management, process management, organizational change management. All of these things need to come together. But what I'm doing, I would never have been able to envision 14 years ago. It's entirely different, and things that I would never have conceived as even viable. Speaking at a convention to an audience of hundreds, if not thousands of people, telling a story about how important it is to embrace uncertainty and navigate change. These things, right, they go together. I would never have thought I would do something like that 10 years ago. I would have said, you're crazy. But as a leader, I had to learn where my audience is and how to find potential clients. And conventions are a great place to do that. So I had to get over stage fright, and I had to get over, and even just being on camera in situations like this prior to the pandemic. How often did we do things like this? Never.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Lots of change.
Yeah.
A thought that came to my mind was, what is, in your opinion, the difference between consulting and coaching?
It's a really great question. And I love that you brought it up, because it's important to distinguish. And they are different. So consulting is work that you outsource to a team of people with a very specific statement of work that is going to have deliverables and outputs of that activity. It will be set for a duration of time. There's maybe build time and materials, maybe a fixed fee kind of a contract, or not to exceed, but it's tied very specifically to the consultant or consulting team doing work on behalf of you and producing a work product that you accept as complete or not at the end of the engagement, or at milestones through that engagement. And is a very, while you may be partnering and doing things together, the burden is on the consulting organization to deliver results. In coaching or advising, the relationship is a little bit different. It's a little bit more of a guide, and taking a team or individuals through a journey of exploration and learning new skills, but not like in a classroom, right? It's learning by doing, setting goals, addressing challenges, understanding as a leader or an entrepreneur or a team member where you're at in your professional journey and how to help you get to that next level and that next thing. If you're having challenges, how to work through them, whether it's going through them, going over them, going around them. There are different ways to work through things, but it is putting the onus more on the individual, not the coach or the advisor, to do the work. They are there as a sounding board. We're there to be supportive and encouraging, to teach and guide, but we don't do the thing. And for me, that advising space is so much more impactful. The lessons are learned and that knowledge stays inside of the client environment with a sense of ownership that you will never see out of a consulting engagement. There's a time and a place for both modes, and I do work in all of that, in both of those spaces, but they're very different. And what I learned when I started thinking about this coaching or the advising piece It was always sort of nestled into the consulting, but never actually called out, but it was necessary to help the group move from where they were to where they were going. And it's been a lot of fun for me developing it as something freestanding so that I can really see that impact on purpose and not as an accidental outcome of something else.
That was so beautifully said. I have over 20 years experience as an executive assistant. So because of the pandemic, virtual assistant was easy for me. But then I got tired of doing the tasks for the people. I wanted to teach them how to do it so they would be able to comprehend the process and develop similar thinking patterns that I have. And that's why I went into coaching.
Doing everything gets hard and it's tiring, and it's very much a one-to-one kind of interaction. I can do the work in a consulting engagement, maybe two at a time. In an advisory capacity, I can influence and support and facilitate 20 at the same time. And so the whole dynamic changes. And for me, what that means for my development is I'm seeing different businesses, I'm seeing different industries, I'm helping people work through all sorts of different challenges. And in my career, I've been in so many different industries that being able to touch more all at the same time is just more knowledge that I have to share with everybody else. And it's fabulous.
I totally feel the same way. I had a short-term position in August, and I was told, we know that you have your own business, but when you're here, you're focusing on us. And I'm like, of course. But the only way that there'll be a crossover is if I discover something outside of where you guys are, I'm going to want to share it with you. You're getting extra knowledge.
You're getting a
And
big benefit.
yeah, and I think that provides so much value. And I love group coaching because I refer to myself as a business muse where I can provide inspiration and thoughts come into my head and I say them and they turn into this big, wonderful thing. That happens more often with group coaching.
One of the ways that I describe myself is an disruption and innovation catalyst. I am not the smartest person in the room. If I'm the smartest person in the room, we have problems, right? Everybody else, the collective knowledge of a group is so much greater than any one individual. But right, I am that person who asks the off the wall questions that facilitates a seemingly silly group exercise. But right, what they're designed to do is to turn on the right side of our brain, our creative centers, so that we can problem solve in different ways. And so it's that catalyst that leads a leadership team, a group of people through to an individual would have an idea that it might be a good idea. But if you have 10 people and you have 10 good ideas, out of that, you're going to get to 20 or 30 really great ideas. And it builds. And so, yes, absolutely. The more the merrier. We need as many perspectives in our interactions as we can have.
Right. And I always had the motto of like, there's going to be someone better than you at a certain thing everywhere. So you're not an expert at everything. You could only be a real expert at like 2 or 3 things. But if you have the collective, you have more experts in the room.
Absolutely. Significantly more expertise. And in group work, right, we build on things. My idea might get us, the first 10 steps into something, but your ideas take us into the heart of what it really is. And then somebody else, I'm mixing metaphors. It's one of my favorite things to do. Somebody else is then going to add the cherry on top. And we're going to have this perfect little sundae of something that individually we would never have thought of.
It's magical.
It is.
Yeah. And I love how organically our conversation has grown. But bring it back to the topic of facing uncertainty and navigating change. What do you suggest someone should start with when they realize that they're feeling uncertain?
Well, the first thing, right, is to take a deep breath and not freak out, right? So the uncertainty it's a reality. It exists. There's nothing you can do to change it. And then it's really, take a look around and what does it mean? So, assess what's going on. So let me do it in a 3-step process for you. The first step, right? Assess. Understand what it means to your business, what it means to your customers, what it means to your employees. What is this thing that's causing the uncertainty? Understand those things. Then let's reflect on it. How does that actually impact? Is it going to reduce our revenue? Is it going to create a higher operating expense? Is it going to cause potential layoffs? Are you sunsetting a product or service? Reflect on what it is that's going to happen. And then the third step, take action, right? Put a plan in place to do something about it. And so when I talked about the adaptive transformation framework and how you take project management and process management and organizational change. All right. So now we're taking this action and we're going to plan a little project and we're going to do whatever it takes to respond to that. Probably going to have some process change. So we have to understand how this new change is going to impact what already exists, come up with the new thing. And that organizational change component is about talking to people and telling your staff what's going on and why, making it clear to them what's in it for them in this change. Their job is going to get easier. It might get harder for a little while, but we're working towards this ultimate goal, what it means to your customers or your clients, and have real, authentic conversations. So as we assess, reflect, plan the action, and then underneath all of that, right, how do we take care of our people on that journey? And that's taking care of people on the journey is the act of navigating the change. Always important to be transparent, to give as much information as early as absolutely possible. It is important to elicit input from everybody you can when you're figuring out what that plan of action is going to look like, because the more perspectives, the better. And oftentimes, and I'll use a worst case example, oftentimes when something unexpected happens and we're having negative results, right? The worst case scenario is often that we're going to remove headcount. And nobody wants to do a layoff. Nobody wants to do those sorts of things. But in the worst case scenario, that's kind of it. And in numerous instances, I have worked with teams through that process. And when those decisions and those choices are figured out exclusively at sort of that management ownership level, and it's very secretive, and all of a sudden there's that bam, that announcement, and everybody's like shell-shocked, there was a better option. In the companies and the teams where they're very upfront about, we are having a financial crisis, these are the things that's happening, here's kind of how bad we think it is, we are trying to find the path to not lose employees. What ideas do you have? And those are the times when employees come together and solve the problems. The idea of furloughs. So you're not losing employees for long term, but we're taking mandatory vacation time to get that off the books. There's lots of different options that people will come up with that can prevent the worst case scenario. Sometimes it pushes it off into the future and it still has to be revisited. But when you get input from everybody and you're honest about it, even when you do have to do the hard thing and reduce headcount, oftentimes there are people who will say, I'm in a position right now to step away. But Vanessa just has 2 young kids and is a single mother, and I would rather step away than have Vanessa lose her role. And it sounds crazy to people who are of a certain age and have a certain background in corporate America, because these are things we would never have done 10 or 15 years ago, but they work.
Yeah.
They work.
It brings a new layer to we're a family here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we're a family here, is it? We're a team, right? Family you're kind of stuck with.
Yeah.
You're kind of stuck with them. You're the crazy aunt or uncle that does weird things at the holidays. You can't like make them go away. But in a team, right, we're picking and bringing people in, and we're supporting and we're coaching and we're growing and we're developing. And if if you're not contributing to the well-being of the team, sometimes you get, kicked off the island, and that's okay. Right? The team has to be whole and complete, and everybody does not always have to stay, but family you kind of get to keep forever. I don't know.
True. Yeah. And being transparent and providing all the information up front is beneficial, not just for uncertainty and negative change. I recently brought on an intern from San Diego State, and I shared my thought process of like, this is all the options that I have. If it stimulates another option, or just giving you all the information, because my job is to teach her as a leader. Like, this is all the information I have. I'm going to give it to you. And it's amazing to be able to put that trust into her and not have to worry if she messes something up, because we all do.
I love messing things up, right? That's where we learn, right? So everything is an experiment, because we don't actually know what the outcome of anything is going to be. If we can take our minds and think about everything as an experiment, and whatever happens, good, bad, indifferent, we're going to learn something. And that's the most important piece, is we're going to learn something. When things go really, really well, we know and we've learned that we want to do more of that. We want to do more of it. We want to do it faster. We want to do it better, but we want more. And when it blows up in our face and it's a horrible, awful failure, we learned, one, we're never going to do that again. And we're never going to do it again as quickly as humanly possible, because we want to go back to those things that we want to do more of. And it's no longer a personal success or failure. It's an experiment, and it's an outcome. And so leaders, we're going to get unexpected outcomes that stink. And we are going to congratulate whoever did it for learning something, so that we never do that again. And we're going to move on. And that's how we learn and how we grow, and how, as we bring in new resources, right, we foster them and want to encourage them. Here's what I do and how I do it. Go do it better.
Yeah, and it takes time to get better at things.
Yep.
A random example, I don't know if you know about Laura Olympus on Webtoon. Really popular comic, and her first episodes compared to the recent ones, the drawing has improved so much. And if she never got started, if she never took the time to take that risk of not being perfect, she wouldn't be where she's at now.
Not doing something for fear of not being perfect is, I'm going to overgeneralize, but I'm going to go for it, very often a female trait. And we do it to ourselves. And I'll cite loosely real data, but I'm pulling this out of the cobwebs. When people read job descriptions, men and women read them very differently. When a woman reads through a job description, more often than not, she will choose to apply for positions where she is confident that she can do 100% of everything that is listed on that job description. Men tend to read that job description and go, I can do about 60%. That desire to be perfect holds us back from being good enough and giving ourselves that opportunity to grow into. And we've lost sight of the fact that, one, job descriptions are poorly written more often than not. They're absolutely incomplete. And there's more stuff that's not in there that you're going to be doing than whatever is actually on the written page. But it is a point of departure. It is not the measurement of exceptional. And so by not applying for something unless we are 100% confident we can do all of it, we are giving the opportunity to people who are less qualified to do that job instead of us. And so perfection kills. The pursuit of perfection kills.
Very much so. And so at what point should a female entrepreneur or small business owner get a coach or an advisor?
So I think that there are stages, and there are other random factoids I've heard recently. Prior to the pandemic, if you were to go out on Google and kind of learn how many business coaches are there, there were about 2 million. If you go out there today and do the same query for the same amount of for the same information, the number is closer to 6 million. So that is an exponential growth in the coaching, and I'm keeping that as very big coaching practice and that discipline. There are coaches that will help at every stage of a business growth cycle, from people who are in that position when you're just starting out and you have that idea and you don't know what to do with it. They will help you incubate that idea. There are, if you have a product or service that you've taken to market and you're getting some traction, there are coaching groups that play in that space of you are now hitting your first growth cycle. So when do you make that choice? It's a personal choice, and I don't know that there's a specific answer. What I will say is, using the tie to the word coach and professional athletes, top performers all have individual performance coaches. They may play on a team, but the best of the best always have somebody in their corner supporting them individually. Cost is always a factor. In the beginning of a business, there may not be funds for that. And so, Vanessa, you were talking earlier about the idea of group coaching. That makes it so much more cost effective in the beginning. And you're leveraging that collective knowledge and that collective intelligence. And so you get a lot out of that. There will be a point in time where I am going to guess that you want an individual coach for you or for your team specifically. You're going to find those moments. But the only thing I caution is, we're doing great. We don't need a coach. Well, that's really that time when you get the help and you have exponential growth. When I hear, I don't know that we need anything, well, you're missing that next opportunity to go from, those are those X level jumps that can start to happen, because if you're doing well, why not do even better?
Right. Like, why put a ceiling on yourself?
Yeah.
That's so awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa. Before we go, do you have a final thought for the audience?
We talked about so many things today. Oh my goodness. I guess the key point in the idea of uncertainty and change, the most important thing is to not freeze and do nothing. So sometimes taking a step, any action is better than no action, because at least you have that opportunity to learn if it worked or if it didn't work. But doing nothing is always doing nothing. And there's not a lot to learn from that. So step into uncertainty, be willing to take small calculated risks, but keep trying and keep navigating, because that's how we go on the journey and that's how we learn.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And all your information is in the show notes. So if anybody would like to reach out to you, they have a direct line.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for inviting me today.
Thank you.